that's the question.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing to it, was the political. It's not illegal to sample in a live setting, right? Whereas there's laws around how you remix and sample and what you can take in 3 seconds and this and that loop. You can take whatever you want as long as it occurs in a live way. You can play whatever you want behind you. There's no law. Don't let anybody fool you. There's no copyright onto anything you do on stage. It's not true. There's no court case that ever ruled against the artist. The big guy comes in, the artist goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and it's over and it settles, but nobody's ever lost.
That's not true. What about the guy who was doing the show about Disney? About the one-person show about
Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars. Do you know about?
It's running right now at the current.
They gave him an okay.
But Disney gave him an okay, but they could have given him a no and shut the show down.
Maybe.
Was what I thought it came to.
No, there's. Yeah. That was not a ruling by a judge.
Yeah.
That was something figured out outside. All I'm saying is go for it and go for it. And that's something that you can't. That's a difference. That's a difference. If you're gonna be a musician who puts down a record or whatever, that's the difference.
Comment.
A lot of comments. Lauren.
You started to answer some of this, but I'm just wondering about your thoughts about when you come up against the technology being distracting because it becomes about the gimmick rather than the performance. I know it's not that simple, but I'm just wondering your thoughts on that in your process through your work.
You want to talk about?
I don't want to talk about it, but I will try. I think that's something that's always on our mind, and I think shapes kind of a lot of the choices that we make, because there's a whole lot of gimmicks that you could throw up on the screen. I mean, once you really get into programming and the technology, you can make all kinds of flashy things happen, and really sort of clever flashy things happen. But if ultimately they're in the service of whatever it is you're trying to say with the technology and the performance, then you have to think about editing that stuff out. Which doesn't mean that I'm not still really, really attracted to some things that may be very, very gimmicky, but there comes a point at which you have to ask yourself those questions, but they're not really asserting what you're trying to say.
Which I think relates to what you're saying, Sarah. It has to still be about what the artist is trying to communicate.
Or what you talking about by finding the right technology for the...
Yeah, it's appropriate use of technology. It's you gotta be able to edit while you're making. Am I still telling the story I want to tell? Am I still doing the thing I want to do? Is this what I want it to be? And don't get hung up on the bling, and that it's a cool idea, period. That's what I think.
I think there's another interesting, just side to that too, which is that, well, on one hand, I feel like, maybe I don't think it is just me. Every time I'm making a piece, I'm like, oh, is everything I'm doing a gimmick? I mean, not just the technology, but literally making art. You can be everything is a gimmick. I mean, the whole, constructing a performance piece, theater in particular, traditional theater, is actually just a series of gimmicks. It's a big magic show, that then is, that when it's good, then is transcendent. Then, you move beyond the gimmick or the tool or the effect or whatever to some deeper meaning behind it. So I think that's the hope sometimes. But sometimes it's also interesting to just make work that is about the gimmick, and that's even pointing out the gimmick or making the gimmick more. Yes, this is a gimmick. How does it feel to be having a gimmick done on you? Maybe gimmick should be a verb now. I'm gimmicking you, especially because we live in this world now where there's so many gadgets, and every gadget has a new gimmick. It's like this endless race, and I think it's interesting to comment on that.
Yeah. That'll wake everybody up. I want to push back on the Chinese spectacle. Okay. I think that it's really it can be very deceptive and a trap to transpose what is spectacle, highly financed spectacle, which is fundamentally propaganda for artistic endeavor. And I think that's the line where creative folks who have some level of independence really can contribute in integrating technology into the artistic pursuit, whether it's a simple miniature camera or something that is complex. It's really irrelevant. It's a question of really what the content is. And I just think it's really dangerous to get into a penis envy of technology, because it's never ending. It will always evolve, will always become more accessible, it'll always get more sophisticated, and it'll always be more powerful in being able to disseminate misinformation.
Yes.
So glad you said that, and I think we all agree, and I think we all strongly feel that way. But it's also there's really, really real practical and even economic realities to that technological penis envy that I think that independent artists are actually up against more and more. And even though what Alessandro was writing about, he wrote about that 10 years ago even, and it's even more true today. It's really a very big reality, and even this is like a whole big discussion that we could have about, but it brings up the question again about the context and the culture and the economic culture that live performance lives in today. And like,
Hold on. So did we ever get, we did get this one to work.
When I started working in technology and art, everything was unaffordable. No one knew how to use any of it. It didn't exist. But if you pursue it, whether for political or creative goals, you learn, it evolves. And the biggest contributors to making that possible were companies like Sony and everybody else who was producing stuff that ultimately ended up into the mass market. There's more technology at a lower price with greater capabilities now than it ever has been that is accessible to the artist, and that trend will continue.
Thank you. Comment over there.
I've got a question about technology stuff-ups and stress. I guess I for my last two pieces, I've started using more technology, and so for two pieces, I've probably performed them like 10 to 12 times, and in 50% of the performances, there has been either some sort of fatal stuff-up of the technology mid-performance, or as stressful, the data projector melted beforehand and then suddenly recovered. And I'm really excited about the layers it's adding to my work. It's also, I'm curious as to whether you all come up with 500 million backup plans for all sorts of different things, whether you have things break down mid-show, how you deal with it, all that sort of stuff.
I developed one backup plan at a point last year that actually works pretty well, which is if you're running your images off of your computer, make your desktop image something that says something like I had on there, system failure. So when your computer crashes, it automatically goes to your desktop, and it just says system failure, and everybody sort of assumes it's a part of the piece. Technology anyway, and it gives you a minute and a half or something to reboot and get things going again, and nobody knows the difference. If your projector craps out, don't do what I always do, which is to really panic and freak out and start to accuse people of doing things they weren't supposed to do. Try to remain calm, because the audience still doesn't know that it's supposed to be that way or not, but it has happened to us. I think it's a really interesting thing about this technology is it's incredibly fragile. Whether it's a patch that I've written and has worked 90 times, the 91st time for some reason, some number goes through the chain of events and makes the thing melt down. I don't know, and I don't know why a projector this projector is working great tonight. It'll probably work every time. It's just us sitting here